Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about the classical 1d4 course that Jesse Buss and I created. This course has 7 different chapters, and each chapter is somewhere around 15 lines deep. And what I'm going to do in this video is just go through kind of an overview of what each chapter covers. So starting with chapter 1, we have the Nimzo-Indian Defense. So we're recommending d4. After knight f6, we're going c4. And after e6, we're recommending knight to c3. So really the best way for black to play against this setup is to play the Nimzo-Indian with bishop to b4. So this is our first chapter, and we're going to recommend a line with knight to f3. And if black castles, we're going to play bishop to g5. So we're calling this the classical d4 repertoire, and really we're going with this classic setup, getting all the pieces well developed. And we're going to try to prevent a couple things from black. We're going to try to prevent them from getting this stronghold on the e4 square in combination with f5, and maybe bringing the bishop out to b7. And we're also going to try to prevent black from taking on c3 and fixing these bad pawns, fixing the bad doubled c pawns. So we kind of have those two goals in this course, and this chapter was inspired by JD, who's our one of the VIP members in our Patreon group. And I think you'll really learn to like this repertoire for white. It's very solid, and there's a lot of common positional ideas, and it also meshes well with the rest of the repertoire. So then moving on to chapter 2, we look at d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, and here we take. So now we're getting into a Queen's Gambit Declined exchange variation. And this is what's also known as the Carlsbad structure. When you look at the pawns, 4 on the queen side for black, 3 for white, and 4 on the king side for white, 3 for black. We have a Carlsbad structure. Here we're recommending bishop to g5, and after bishop to e7, e3, castle, bishop d3, c6, queen c2, we're going to tend to play knight to e2, castle, f3, e4. And if you have our Carol Con course, this is actually very similar to the exchange variation with colors reversed. So pretty common themes here. We explain every move, what the thoughts behind it are, and we give you plans at the end of each line. And I'll put a card above kind of showing the playlist for our classical D4 course. And also in the links below in the description, there is a link to the classical D4 course that kind of goes through, breaks down everything about the course, but I won't go into more detail right here. So now let's go to chapter 3. This is after d4, d5, c4, c6. We're recommending the exchange Slav. So another exchange chapter. And here we're going to throw a wrinkle at black already on the 4th move. We're going to recommend bishop to g5. And without going into too much detail, check out some of the other videos. Essentially what happens is if knight f6 is played, we're going to take, and we're going to play this in a very positional way. And we're going to try to take black down positionally. Chapter 4 is where we get into some of the sharper stuff. So we start with knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, and we cover both the King's Indian and the Grunfeld in this chapter. So there's 15 lines, about 5 of them are on the Grunfeld, 10 of them are on the King's Indian. And this is a chapter where we're really going to press for that extra space advantage, especially against the King's Indian. We have a fun line where we play an early h3 followed by g4. Now moving on to chapter 5. This is sort of a family of different openings, most of them starting with the letter B. We're going to be covering the Benko. So that's with c5, d5. And the line we're recommending is an early knight to d2. Kind of a positional approach here. We're also going to look at the Benoni setup. So after d5, black plays e6. And against the Benoni, what we're going to do is knight c3. If takes d6, we're going to recommend a really fast e4 followed by f4, f5. And we're going to play aggressively. And I've used this a bunch in Blitz already. And my opponents don't know what to do. This is a very rare line with the really quick f4 and e5. And it catches a lot of players off guard. So we're going to play aggressive against the Benoni. And then in this chapter, we also cover the Budapest, which is move number 2, e5. and we give you 3 different lines to look at. We like to play it safe against the Budapest, but still kind of keep that comfortable edge because they're playing a suspect opening. And after 1 c5, the old Benoni, we're going to give you lines where we push past, and if black plays this setup with d6 followed by e5, we're going to try to hit these pawns very quickly. So black will play f5, try to build the big center. We're going to go e4, f4, open up the center, and show you how to play against the weak light squares in the black position. So really this chapter, a lot of the variations give us a nice comfortable advantage. And then moving on to chapter 6, we go through d4, d5, essentially everything else that we haven't covered after d4, d5. So this covers things like the Queen's Gambit accepted, d takes c. It covers this kind of rare idea that's more common at lower levels, knight f6, not defending that d5 pawn with another pawn. We also look at e5, and we look at knight to c6, the Chigorin, and we look at other things like the Tarrasch variation, which is, there's different ways to get to it, but usually it's e6 followed by a quick c5. Now moving on to the last chapter, we're calling this the Miscellaneous chapter. We cover a bunch of different lines. We cover the modern defense, which is g6. We cover the rat defense, which is d6. We cover the Dutch, f5. And we cover the England, and we also cover the English. So we go through a lot of different variations here in this Miscellaneous chapter, but hopefully this kind of completes the course, gives you most of the lines that you need to know. And the way we set up this course, each line is approximately 1% of your games that you'll expect to see. And then as we add bonus content, which we already have some content out there, we'll put it in the Google Drive when you purchase the course. But also we have the the Classical 1D4 playlist, not the CaroCon. We have a different course for CaroCon. So we have a playlist on YouTube for Classical 1D4 in addition to your Google Drive documents. So make sure to check out the links in the description. I'll also put a link to the playlist on YouTube for Classical 1D4, and put your questions in the comments below. Let me know if you have any questions about the 1D4 course, any questions on specific lines that maybe aren't covered in the other videos. And hopefully you guys enjoy this course and you enjoy the preview of the other chapters. And I'd like to also say, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, we have a goal of 1,000 subs by the end of the year. So please subscribe. Please give the video a thumbs up, and we appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next video.